Welcome to the Holistic Accountant Podcast. This is where we cut through conventional accounting and show you how a genuinely holistic approach drives better after-tax outcomes. It's not about ticking boxes or churning out tax returns. It's about strategic advice that builds lasting wealth. If you find this episode valuable, leave a rating and share it with someone who will benefit. Okay, today, Mena and I would like to talk about, a strategic shortcut. How do you find just the top 2 or 3 priorities? So last week we shared some insights from Vern Harnish presentation, which is really around sort of scaling your business. And we talked about 10 things that, 10 insights in terms of, how you can scale your business and your profitability and so forth. And so what we'd like to do today is kind of share a little bit of a framework for focusing on 1, 2, or maybe 3 key priorities. Often you find, people in business, their shortage isn't of ideas. Typically it's called the entrepreneurial curse in terms of, the reluctance to sort of focus on one particular sort of strategy or direction. You're always kind of getting distracted by shiny objects. And there might be, 10 things, 20 things, 50 things you want to work on your business, and you feel like you're sort of going in lots of different directions. But focus is really an undervalued asset or underappreciated asset. I know that Steve Jobs in Apple, when you read stories about him, he always focused on one of the Apple products and just worked on that product for, 1 or 2 months at a time and then shifted to another product. And so when you channel your energy, most of your 99% of your energy into one thing, of course, you're most likely to nail it. Now, there's probably 50 things that we can improve in our business and 50 things that you can improve in yours, but it's really about finding what are the just handful of those priorities that are going to achieve the biggest outcome. And so I came across a video by a guy called Tom Williams, and he runs a business in the US called Innovation Consult. And I was interested because he said he once spent $200,000 to get a business plan put together by a leading consultant, and it was 110 pages, and it was confusing, and there was no clear growth plan. Now, look, it's a social media post. Whether he spent 200 grand, who knows? If he did, it sounds like a crazy thing to do. But the thing that attracted me was that in his experience as a consultant, he's built businesses apparently and been quite successful. There's 5 questions that we can really focus on. And I like these frameworks because it helps us really find what is the highest value priority in my business. And then you can make that a quarterly goal or a half yearly goal, depending on the size of that priority, and really put all your and the team's energy into solving that one. And then you move to the next thing and the next thing. That is a much more successful strategy than focusing on, 50 priorities, of course, and going in lots of different directions. So today, Mena are going to talk about these 5 questions that you can ask and wrap it all up at the end.
So the first question is around where you'll play. So this is about sort of setting boundaries. Now, Australian SMEs, given that it's a bit of a smaller market than international markets, we tend to fall into the trap of being generalists, which dilutes our positioning, tends to dilute our margins and our market efficiency. So when we say where we'll play, it forces a decision about your lane, your industry, your geography, your customer type, and what you're offering. So similar to what Stuart mentioned before around Steve Jobs and Apple, focusing on one product. Clear boundaries help you produce sort of sharper messaging. People know what your business is and what it's all about. It helps better referrals. It makes hiring a lot easier because your staff are aligned with what you do and what you offer. And it makes you more profitable around operations. It makes you more scalable because you're focusing on that one particular item. It eliminates the expensive chaos of chasing every possible customer and instead directs resources to the market where you have the highest probability of winning.
Question number 2 is, who is on your team? I'm sorry to be crude, but you can't build a great business with shit people. That's what one of my mentors has told me many times, and it really is true because the people are the execution in terms of you can have a great strategy, but if it's not executed perfectly, you're going to fail without a doubt. Or what happens is that you have people that aren't the right people for the business, and then it falls on the founder to really drive everything. So Jim Collins talks about having the right people in the right seats. So there's two factors there: right people, right seats. So you can have the right person, but maybe they're not in the right role in your business, and you need to sort of shuffle the deck chairs a little bit. But mostly I find in business, it's really the wrong people. And the best question, which we have spoken about before in this podcast, the best question you can ask is, would you enthusiastically rehire every person in your business? And the key word here is enthusiastic. You've got to be enthusiastic about it. If not, you might not have the right people. Now, last week, Mena spoke about return on payroll. Another measure is revenue per staff member. I think these are really good metrics to really think about, because it's not about just increasing your headcount. Throwing people at the problem is rarely the solution. All it's going to do is just add cost, complexity, more challenge. What you really want is leverage. So you want a smaller number of higher quality people in the right seats, supported by training, technology, tools, whatever you can give them so they can thrive in that role. And that's really how you're going to succeed. So asking yourself the question, who's on your team, is critical, because it's a critical people question.
The next thing to focus on is how you'll win. So this is the heart of your competitive advantage. We've previously spoken about your USP, your unique selling position. What is it that you offer that demands a specific product or service that separates you from the rest? That, if I was to do a Google search, what sets you apart from the rest on there? So for many SMEs, the winning strategy is usually one of, speed, superior customer service, could be a niche specialization, deep expertise in a certain matter or subject line, consistency and reliability. So, people tend to focus a lot on reviews these days, trust, and your relationship capital. So the real value is in turning this into an operating principle, something the entire team can really explain and execute. So strategy only matters if it shows up in behaviors, pricing, marketing, and service deliverability. It needs to be everything that everyone lives and breathes. Your team, as Stuart mentioned before, needs to live and breathe all that you're basically trying to get to your customers, so that you really set yourself apart from the rest.
Question number 4 is, what could kill your business? And a bit of a shout out to a client of ours, Tony Frencham, who is an advisory board chair for small to medium enterprises. And he talks about having a risk register. And the risk register is everything that, could kill your business, everything that could go wrong. And then you have to think about the likelihood of that risk and the impact of that risk. And of course, if the likelihood is low and the impact is low, then no one really cares about it. If the impact is high, but the likelihood is all very, very, very remote, you probably don't care about that either. It's where the likelihood is reasonable and the impact is reasonable. They're the risks that you need to think about. And competition rarely kills business. I mean, competition helps business become better and better each year. It's a necessary requirement for, a business to thrive. What kills businesses is risks or lack of opportunities or challenges not fully met. And so it's paramount then to really think about what could kill your business, what could go wrong, what could upset the execution of the strategy, and then think about all the things that you can put in place so that those risks don't arise. But also, if those risks do materialize, you've got a plan in place and you can readily execute that plan. So for example, cyber attack, there's things that we can do in terms of making sure our security and our training of staff, because often, weaknesses in technology systems are a human being issue, someone clicking on a wrong link or something like that. So you can do all those sorts of things, but you hope a cyber attack is a very low probability risk. But at least if you have a plan on how to deal with that, if it does happen, you can immediately implement that plan, and it gives not only you but the people in your business confidence around dealing with those sorts of matters. So what could kill your business is a great question to ask.
The next question is, what must get done in your business? So what are the critical priorities? So this is really your execution filter, the conversation of strategy into action. I know in our business, for example, we've got a zero tolerance on late tasks or overdue tasks. So we focus on really the improvements that we can make within our task and our turnaround times to basically say, okay, these are the critical ones that everyone's responsible for, and that needs to be done every single day or every single week. So most SMEs have endless task lists, admittedly, but very few non-negotiable priorities. And this is where I believe most businesses that succeed do well. The question eliminates busy work by identifying one to three initiatives that will deliver disproportionate disproportionate impact in the next sort of 30 to 90 days. So examples could include things such as, fixing the lead generation bottleneck or redesigning pricing so you can become more profitable, hiring a key operator or someone that's right for the role that will help you become more efficient because the expertise might not be in-house, systemizing your onboarding or your offboarding, resolving sort of quality inconsistency in the service or product that you offer. These become the owner's sort of 99% focus areas. Everything else is all almost somewhat optional. A single discipline dramatically increases momentum and alignment across the business. Otherwise, you just get too bogged down and the busy work just sets you back.
Okay, so what do you do with these 5 questions? So what I'd like to invite you to do is sit down for, maybe half an hour and answer just briefly your answer to these 5 questions. And let me just sort of recap. Where are we playing? Who's on your team? How will we win? What could kill the business? And what must get done? And I'm going to suggest that there's going to be probably one, maybe 2 questions, hopefully not more, could be 5, 1 or 2 that your answer is weak. So, for example, who's on my team? You can sit there and think about who do I need on my team and compare that to, and the strength of those individuals, compare that to your current team and see if there's a big gap there. If that is the issue, then you've got to work on your team. Or if it's, strategy, so where we're going to play, if you feel like you're playing in sort of too many industries or spaces or segments, maybe it's a strategy question. But the idea is really to find the 1 or 2 things that are key in your business that, it will give, if you put your focus in, is going to have the greatest impact on your results. Results in terms of risk, so make your business stronger. Could be results in terms of financial outcomes or whatever purpose that you're serving. I find these 5 questions are a great way of, it's a quasi business plan, if you like, because that's really what a business plan does, is bring together, the answers to these 5 questions, and that equals a coherent strategy. So it's a shortcut to not going away and producing a fully fledged business plan, but really working out what your priorities are. And it's a great time of year to do that too, because you can go in fresh into 2026 with a clear strategy. Okay, of course, last week we spoke about in episode 156. I can't believe we've done 156 episodes. Last week we spoke about the 10 insights from Vern Harnish training. So I think these 2 episodes sort of go hand in hand. And the goal, Mena and my goal with this was really to share some insights to help you plan for 2026. And we're going to share some more next week. So until then, bye for now.